So before I start this video, I just wanted to mention that I will be doing a charity stream for the victims and families affected by the Kanjuruhan tragedy. There will be more information about this at the end of the video. On October 1st, a match between Arema FC and Persebaya FC in Kanjuruhan Stadium unfolded with no major incidents throughout the 90 minutes. In the end, Persebaya went on to win 3-2. It was the first time they had actually won away from home at Arema. This is where things started to heat up, with Aremania supporters, also known as basically the ultras of Arema FC, being frustrated with the loss. The Arema players actually came to apologize to the fans after the loss. From multiple sources, it was said that one of the fans was actually consoled by one of the players, but immediately after was basically taken down and beaten relentlessly by police. And seeing their friends being beaten, more people invaded the pitch. The first wave of fans pouring onto the pitch came from stand 12. Waves from other stands followed. And once the whole pitch was just a chaotic riot, things took a turn for the absolute worst. As the police were getting backed up by these large crowds, they started to throw tear gas onto the pitch. Tear gas is what they use to basically just disperse riots. A few minutes pass, and the police then decide to fire tear gas towards stand 12, toward people who had nothing to do with anything happening on the pitch. The police also fired towards stands 10, 11, 14, and then also fired one towards the opposite side of the stadium. So practically the entire stadium was just covered in a cloud of tear gas. As a result, supporters in the stands, who again didn't have anything to do with this whatsoever, were now screaming and panicking, because they couldn't breathe. A lot of them fainted, and because of the people who were screaming and finding ways out of the gas, a lot of those people who had fainted on the ground were now being trampled upon. But not only were people dying because of a lack of oxygen or being trampled upon, they were also dying from asphyxiation from the multiple crowd crushes due to the stampeding chaos. Those on the south stands, who had 7 shots of gas fired at them, were running towards gates 12, 13, and 14 to exit the stadium. But the only one open was gate 14. The other two had fans pretty much running into locked doors and to their deaths as they were all crushed. And gate 12 saw by far the worst bottleneck, with supporters frantically trying to escape through the skinny corridor. And with people becoming more and more desperate to save themselves, the crowd crush got worse within seconds. And you look at some of those images of the aftermath from the gates, like gate 12, 13, and 14, and you see railings being lodged out of the concrete and walls being broken. It really just shows how desperate people were trying to save themselves, and it's heartbreaking. It's horrible. Since 1994, 74 people have died because of Indonesian football violence. But on October 1st alone, more than 131 people died in Kanjuruhan Stadium, with more than 547 injured. Mothers carrying their toddlers were screaming with water coming out of their eyes and noses, trying to escape the clouds of tear gas. Many of the victims were just kids and teenagers. 33 of the 131 deaths were children ranging from 3 to 17 years old. A lot of friends have been lost, families have lost loved ones, and there's even children who are now orphans because of this tragedy. It's just horrible thinking that people were so happy and joyful to see their club play, and they just died hours later being cradled by loved ones and even people they didn't even know. And many survivors of this have been left traumatized by the haunting screams of people desperate for help and the images of people dying. As mentioned before with the statistic, Indonesian fan culture can be a massive problem at times. Not all fans, but some fans have a very narrow-minded look on the game itself and see any opposition as basically just fighting targets. And it's these people that just ruin it for everyone. In some cases, even traveling on an away day as a fan of a rival team can get you killed. I get that passion is something that drives us human beings forward to keep going, but like all things, too much of something can never be a good thing. You should never be going to a football match with the idea that you may never see your family and friends ever again. While there is a conversation that needs to be made about Indonesian fan culture, the blood of the innocents in the case of Kanjuruhan are all on the police. It is not even a doubt in my mind that they are the ones to blame for the death toll and how massive it is. How the police dealt with this whole situation from the very start was both negligent and just disgraceful. When invaders come onto the pitch, they're usually just chased around and then tackled, and then everything's kind of good there. Because the whole point of getting rid of an invader is to simmer down the situation, not f***ing skyrocket it to 1,000. There's a couple videos, I'm not going to show them for obvious reasons, but you can see that people are quite literally just standing. They're not really doing anything, they're not even running, and policemen will just drop kick them in the back and push them, and it's disgusting, man. It's not how you calm down a situation at all. I'm no policeman, don't get me wrong, but beating armorless people while you are armored relentlessly is not in the fucking handbook. And if it is, there's some serious problems with the police force in Indonesia, but we'll talk about that later. But here's the part that caused the death toll to be as high as it is. The tear gas. Already, it is a terrible idea to ever fire tear gas in a closed environment. Not to mention, there's a literal FIFA guideline that clearly mentions police officers are not allowed to use firearms or crowd control gas. But according to sources from what I've read, that has been considered a mere suggestion to the Indonesian police force. And speaking of guideline violations, the security officers inside the stadium need to always ensure that all exits and other routes remain unobstructed at all times. Not only was that not the case whatsoever, but also the police decided to turn off the lights in the stadium before firing tear gas. This could have all been avoided. We wouldn't be talking about 131 people dead, 500 plus injured, had the police not been morons and had maybe a semblance of empathy. But that segues into our next discussion, the Indonesian police force. Poor policing has been an issue in Indonesia for decades now. According to Amnesty Indonesia, it had documented at least 411 victims of police brutality during protests in 2020 alone. The worst part about all of this is that Indonesia's police force have an excessive amount of power coinciding with an ever-growing budget. This year, the budget stands at over 7.2 billion, and that's double the figure in 2013. And a lot of that budget has gone into batons, tear gas, and other weapons, which really just tells you how much the police force actually care for the well-being of their communities. Their main answer to any protest, whether it's violent or even peaceful, is reach for the tear gas. There is absolutely no effort at all in teaching officers how to properly deal with situations like these. Indonesia's police force is also severely corrupt, as they have so much power, they have the final say in whether a case should be prosecuted or not. According to Amnesty International, there almost never has been a single trial over excessive use of police force, which completely makes sense why they take these shortcuts instead of proper measures, because their abhorrent actions never have consequences. No matter how many people die at the hands of the police, they will continue to hold their power. As of this recording, there have been 6 suspects that have been named, and most of them aren't even police officers, which is mind-boggling. That number should easily be much higher and include every single name of every police officer involved during that night. We can't let them get away with this, because if they do, more of these similar tragedies will continue happening. So as I said before at the beginning of the video, I will be doing a charity stream with all the proceeds going towards the victims of the Kanjuruhan tragedy. I also will be monetizing this video with all the proceeds in the first month going towards the victims, and then after that I'm just going to turn off monetization on this video. But I'll be doing this charity stream on Thursday, October 20th, around 10 a.m. is the start, with the end time being 5 p.m. live on my Twitch. Nothing exactly has been planned out concretely, but my idea is I just get a bunch of your favorite YouTubers, we play some stuff like Fall Guys, GeoGuessr, maybe even Mario Kart, and it'll all be a really fun time for a very good cause. I'll keep you guys updated throughout the next few videos, but also do not feel obligated to donate, but it would mean the world to me if you tuned in. But again, my thoughts are with all the victims of this tragedy and their families as well, and I really hope you guys find answers.